So here we go. Your host today, we have Robert Meyer, Senior Partner Manager from Celonis. We have on our side Sandro Pedetti, our Head of Data and Analytics. And today with us also is Florian Tunger, our banking consultant. He will show you some interesting insights on process mining based on a live demo. Good. So what's the agenda for today? We will have a short introduction about adesso and about Celonis. We will show you what process mining is. We will also show how process mining works. No worries, it's not too technical. And we will also raise the question and give you some insights why process mining is so important. Last but not least, Florian will give you a live demo. So you will get the opportunity to get some key insights on how this process mining tool of Celonis works and how the benefits can be achieved. From an intro perspective, so adesso is a consulting house here in Switzerland, which focuses on the digital transformation projects. So in a way, we bring business ideas in combination with latest technology together, and we serve our clients in all industry. Seems like we have a technical challenge. So we are based in Switzerland with 5 locations. As you see on the left side, we work in different industries. We are pretty strong in the financial services. And on the right side, you see some cross-industry topics. One of our latest big achievements are projects in the area of digital transformation, of process mining and artificial intelligence, as we believe that the combination of profound technology-driven innovations with industry-specific know-how really helps to embrace the potential of digital projects. So what we also do is that we work pretty strongly with partners together, because we believe on the one hand it's important that projects are delivered, covering the expectation or exceeding the expectation, but that you also are aware of the latest challenges and pain points within the industry, and in combination with strong leading partners which have innovative solutions, we are pretty certain that we deliver the added value to our clients and our projects. Having said that, I would like to hand over to Robert Meyer from Celonis. He will give you some insights about Celonis. Robert?
Thank you very much, Alexander. Yes, my name is Robert Meyer, and I'm here today to represent Celonis in this webinar. Now let me quickly introduce Celonis to you. We are a 2011 founded, very fast growing German technology company with headquarters in New York and Munich, and we have offices around the world. We're currently about 1,200 employees, and trying to hire about 250 additional Celonauts, as we call ourselves. Together with partners like adesso, we have helped world-leading companies such like UniCredit, Deutsche Bank, Telekom, Vodafone, and many others to achieve remarkable business value. And with last year, we had been growing 100% year over year. We have done more than 2,000 customer deployments, and we became market leader in process mining with more than 60% market share. We further significantly plan to grow and plan to generate $1 billion in annual revenue in 4 to 5 years. And only our partner ecosystem will allow us to scale and achieve this goal. And partners like adesso are key for our growth strategy. And yeah, we're very proud to work with partners and with adesso. Next slide. Just recap a bit. So what are we doing? What are we offering? How does it work? In 2011, we started as a process mining company. We focused on process transparency. We were helping our customers to get an X-ray of their processes. In that time, it was primarily a tool for data analysts. We have developed a complete new software category, We call it the execution management system. What it does, it combines all the necessary business disciplines to improve your business performance. So it starts with analytics, strategic planning, management of day-to-day operation, best-in-class actions and recommendations, and it helps you to find intelligent automation angles to your processes. And we're further investing. Just last week, 2 weeks ago, at our annual customer event, Sellosphere, we announced new functionalities, new features, such like simulation of processes, and we're adding sustainability ratings to our machine learning and artificial intelligence engine. So now imagine you not only can optimize, for instance, supply chain processes in regards to financial performance, you can also build KPIs to achieve, let's say, your carbon emission goals. So how does it work? First, we measure the execution capacity in identifying execution gaps, so the blockages in your processes. We connect to various source systems instantly, fetch real-time data, and with groundbreaking visualizations, Celonis shows you in minutes the transparency into your processes that you always have demanded. This is the, in most of customer cases, this is where customer says, oh, really? And it also shows you the gaps and where they are and where they have the most relevant impact of your key performance indicators. Then in the second step, we enable each employee in the company with dashboards for executives, for managers, and clerks to know what action to take at the right time. Here we use the knowledge of our 2000 implementations, combine it with machine learning, and sense your gaps in your processes, as I said, and we make specific recommendations to remove these gaps. And last act, so we allow you to take actions to remove those gaps and unlock your capacity, both by automating real-time actions, so for instance, writing back into your source systems, as well as concrete actions in deploying the right personnel, the right people, and the right time to remove those gaps. So for the theory, now I would like to hand over to Sandro and to Adesso to go one level deeper and use a practical example and show you how Celonis works in actions. So Sandro, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Robert. We would like to give you a short introduction into process mining. To start with, we would like to ask you if you can answer the questions about these processes based on facts. So basically, can you automatically spot compliance deviations in bottlenecks in your processes? Do you know where you have rework activities? Do you know where you should or could automate? Do you know your automation rate? Do you know how many process variants do you have? Where are the deviations? How big are the deviations? So there are basically many, many questions about your processes. And now we would like to ask you in a short poll, what is your feeling? What do you know about your processes? Give us your indication. We are very interested in your feedback. Yes, there are some answers flowing in. Maybe a few seconds more. Very well. So that's quite interesting that 8% already know everything. That's very good. But we can see most of you have only a partial insight in your processes. and some of you even have no insight. So this seems to be a very interesting topic for you in any case. Let's continue then. On this picture, we see a major key problem in process management and process analysis. Basically, we have a well-defined process. As you can see, the process A. This is the to-be process. This was designed like this. But we can also see that there is a process path B. Obviously, the process is not executed like as planned. It's executed in a different way. In process mining, this is a very important point, that you can see all the variants of one process. Obviously, there is an alternate variant. So basically, you can move differently through the system and you don't comply to the planned process. This is not really a problem, but you should know it and you should be able to measure it. And you should measure it on facts, which means data nowadays. So the conclusion is, let's let the data speak. Now let's see what we can do about it. Today, in your systems, you already have all your transactions. You're working day by day. You have all the processes, or most of them, digitalized already, but you have little insight in your real process and in the weaknesses of these processes. This is a pity, because you have many tools already. You have business intelligence, you have many system related tools, but you don't really see the full picture. You only see partial pain points. Usually you can only measure, especially with business intelligence programs, you can only measure KPIs. So you know, for example, that the process takes 5 days, but you don't know exactly why does it take 5 days. So if you want to go down to 4 days, you have no possibility to know where to start with. This is where process mining comes in, and we switch on the light, as we say. With process mining, you can really see into your system. It's like an X-ray. You can really see how the processes are executed with real data in your systems. And this is the big difference to other tools. This is not a modeling tool. This is not a simulation tool. It's really reconstructing the process flows as they happen in your system. And these tools, they use transactional data that you already have. So basically, you don't have to invent or add something. So you just use what you're doing anyway, any day. And by doing that, by using these tools, you can uncover all the deviations, bottlenecks, long process times, even non-compliance, which is very important, and much more. Additionally, this information can be enhanced by using state-of-the-art AI and machine learning, which means basically the system can propose next best steps, because it already can calculate what might be happen as a next step. So you can use all your data that you have in your systems to really improve the outcome of your processes. So how does it work? Basically, we only need a few things. We need IT-based work, which means we need your systems. As I said, you have all these transactions already in your systems. Then based on that, we have the digital footprints, like, for example, an ID, which could be an order ID, an order item, or a help desk ticket. Then there's an activity, like, for example, an order is placed, an order is printed, a good is received, and we need a timestamp. So when did it happen? In many systems, you have this information already, especially in modern systems. You have event logs included, you have sys audits, you have audit trails in your system. So basically, you can use this quite quickly. And by using that, you have full transparency, because you really see what is happening in your system. So why should we use that? Basically, the traditional approach to process analysis was to have workshops, meetings, interviews with people related to the processes, which is an important thing, but it's very time-consuming, and often it's not fact-based. It's more or less fiction-based, because they cannot really remember what really happened. They don't have the bigger picture. They only have maybe an idea about their own department, about a certain product line, about a branch, and they cannot really know for millions of transactions what really happened on the enterprise level. And then you measure it basically by hand. You try to use reports, you try to use business intelligence, for example, Excel worksheets. And in the end, you have information cluttered around many different documents, but you still have, you don't have the full picture. You have a lot of effort, but the results are not satisfactory. So what we propose is to have a new approach, as we already have these digital footprints in our systems, and we have these intelligent tools with intelligent algorithms. We can really have the full transparency. And the good thing is it's all in one tool. So basically you have a one-spot access to all the information. You can have information about all the branches, all the product lines, all the departments, and you can really have it daily updated or weekly updated. You can, at any time, you know where you stand with your processes. And we think this is the way to do process analysis and optimization nowadays. To conclude, with process mining, you really can answer the questions. Now you can visualize and reconstruct the processes. You see the bottlenecks. You see where there is automation potential. You know that the deviations. So basically, you have the full transparency over all your processes, and you can really act accordingly and remove all these execution gaps and problems and be more efficient in your processes. Maybe one final word about why do we need another tool? We already have business intelligence. As I said, business intelligence tools are very good at measuring KPIs to calculate single data points. And this is really a good thing, but you cannot have the full insight into a process because the time aspect is missing. So what we can do with process mining, and this is the new thing, that's why this is a new software category. You can look into the processes by themselves, which means you really see the flow. You can really act on the process and the problems, which you cannot with business intelligence tools that are KPI based. We will see that in the demo that will follow now. I would like to hand over to Florian for a very interesting demo where you can see all these different aspects.
Thank you, Sandro. Before we start with the actual demo, let's set the scene a bit. So let's imagine we have our example bank, let's call it Top Bank, and they have over the last decades even built a solid business on lending to SMEs, to businesses. So in the last few years, some new competitors have emerged, and some more innovative older competitors have also started to improve the user experience of their customers. Now, what Top Bank's management has also noticed is that they have started to drop a bit in ratings regarding process times. So customers need to wait a bit longer for an answer to their application than with competitors. Now, to remediate this, the management has already started a project to a traditional process management project, and they have found some solutions, but they are not quite confident that they have the full picture because the process is very complex. They have lead vendors involved, other external parties like credit bureaus. So they want to start a full project with Celonis to get a full understanding of their situation. Now, to structure this project, the project team has formulated 3 hypotheses. First one centers around customer cancellations. So the theory there is that there are certain activities in the process that frustrate the customers and that lead to a higher likelihood of the customers canceling their application. The second one is a very traditional one, let's say, about process times. So customers don't like to wait a long time. Plus, if Top Bank is able to quicken the process times, they might be able to give an offer to a client before the competition and thus gain this client. The last one, the last hypothesis revolves around lost cases. So the theory is that there are certain process steps where cases end for whatever reason, and these are not process steps, process ends that we would like. So for example, an answer from a credit bureau is missing, and process just stops and the client never gets an answer. Exactly. So now that we have our structure, let's switch to the demo. Okay, so what you see here is one of the key elements of Celonis. This is the Variant Explorer. As the name already says, it lets us go through the variants that we have in our process. So what you see here is the most common variant, and we can add additional ones just by click, and you can see how the full picture of the process evolves with each variant. Now we can also show all variants. What we have then is what we call a plate of spaghetti. Nevertheless, we see here already that the visualization provides a bit of structure because we see the connections between activities get bigger with the number of cases that go through this connection. So we can already estimate the most common process and the most important connections. Now let's go back to get a bit more to regain the insight that we have and show you some other neat features. So what we can do, for example, is we can visualize certain process variants optically. So here we see each of these dots is a case, and we can see which route it takes through our whole picture. This also helps us to compare different variants. And we can also see how fast the cases move through our process. Now, if we want to have details on a specific node in the process, specific activities, we can do that with just one click. And we can also set a filter for this specific activity. We then only have cases in all of our analyses that actually include this activity. Now let's reset this. The same thing also goes for connections. Now this was to show you a bit in more detail. Normally, what we have, if we have a big screen at hand, we have an overview like this, and then we can click here in the process visualization. We can set filters, and these filters will change immediately what we see on the right-hand side. Now that we have the overview, let's go to our first hypothesis and see what we can find there. Now, here we already have filtered, according to our hypothesis, the cases that go through the step of the customer canceling his application. So we see this here. We have a lower number of total cases that are shown to us. And we can already see that this concerns about 17% of all cases. Now, if we look at the picture here that we see, this is the Process Explorer. It lets us go through the cases, not by variants, but by the next important activity or connection. So let's reset, because already in the most common picture we have some insight. We see here that in a lot of cases where the customer cancels, this is caused by the bank correcting the application. So there's some information missing or some documents, and they correct it, they contact the customer, and the customer then cancels his application. And this visualization is really good because we immediately see this connection, and we can see how strong it is. Let me zoom in a bit. It really helps us visualize what's going on, and we see it in order of importance. Now, if we further filter on this found root cause here, we can see our analysis on the right-hand side changes if it's loading. Seems to be a lot of demos today. Yeah, what we would see on the right-hand side is these adapting to the filter we have set, as we have seen before. And then we will see that the online channel becomes even more prominent, and that we have two lead sources where most of the cases actually come from. This is important because we want to fix a problem. We want to know where it occurs the most, so that we can actually fix it there and create the most benefit with the least effort possible. Now, just reset this a bit and go to the next slide. Maybe we're a bit luckier there. Okay, as we have found that the problem can be narrowed down to two lead vendors, we have built an additional analysis, or our analysts have built it, where we can drill down further on this. Now, if we go to our first lead vendor that we had in the list, this is CreditCheck24, we can see that the process picture doesn't change much. So the problem is confirmed as the same. And we can see that the customer cancellation rate rises as compared to an average overall cases. Now here, as we see, some documents are missing in a lot of the cases where the customer cancels, or where the application needed to be corrected. So we are going to investigate this further, and we see that financial accounts are missing a lot of the time. Now, to see what happens there, we have a filter. We can preset filters here. This lets us immediately jump to specific views, and we see the process picture is still the same, but we have a very, very high customer cancellation rate. And we see that this problem covers around 120 million of credit volume that we would, of course, like to generate. Now, because we have been able to narrow down the situation quite specifically to quite a specific problem, we can now go to CreditCheck24, talk to them, work with them to improve their application form, for example, to implement a check, and already cover a lot of the cases where we have cancellations that we don't want. Now, the same thing can be done for our other lead vendor. I will jump right into the specific filter here before we have seen that the tax returns are missing. So already we see here that we can differentiate quite a lot between situations and really narrow them down. So here we see an even higher customer cancellation rate, and we see that we have even more credit volume that can be gained by fixing the problem. Here is just a different form that's missing. Of course, you can also go to them and try to fix all the forms, but we now know what is the most important one to tackle first, let's say. So if you have to prioritize, we know how to do that. Of course, we can also investigate the cases where no documents are missing, but where other reasons are. But as you can imagine, the application form will have a lot of fields, so we're not going to go into that today. But if we start a project to improve the application form, of course, we can detail analysis and then go into that. Good. That is our first hypothesis. Now let's go to the second one. This revolves around process time. So what we do here is look at the whole process, see where we have times that seem to be too long. Now we can do that. We have changed the Process Explorer. We can do that quite easily. There are preset KPIs. We have changed the Process Explorer to display the average time it takes between two activities. Now, what you see here already is that we have quite a lot of time that it takes a customer to submit his application once he has started it. So 23 hours on average is quite a lot. What we further see is that we once we request a credit score from the credit bureau, we wait quite a lot of time until we have the information back. Now, because nowadays there's APIs for that, we can automate this process to a high degree. We would like to investigate what's going on here and see how we can improve it. Now, the third thing we see is that we have a solution in place that auto approves credits or auto declines them. But to get further, we are looking at the scenario of auto approving them, and it takes then 17 hours on average to create a contract and send it to the client. Now, this seems to be quite a lot for an automated solution, so we want to look into that as well. But let's start at the beginning. So we can zoom in on the process. This again selects only cases where this specific set of activities occurs, and we can have a closer look here. Now, what we do now is that the forms for our different credit types are different in complexity as well. There's different things that need to be submitted. So what we will do is quickly go through our credit types that we see down here, and we can then simply see how the numbers adjust in the Process Explorer on the left-hand side. Now we see here already business development loans seem to be very complex. They take 45 hours on average to submit. You can see that for SBA loans, this is also about at the same level, but at the same time, there's a very low number of these loans. So if we want to improve something, this might not be our first priority. Now we see NWC financing is on average around. We see that term loans are on average as well, and we can continue this with the equipment loans and with the invoice financing, where we see that we have quite low numbers. So these already seem to be quite optimized. Again, if we want to investigate this further, we will need a separate analysis because it would just simply be too long for today's webinar. But what we do know after this quick browsing through is that we have two possible entry points. So we can go for the term loans, which have with 23 hours, not an insignificant time duration, and a very high number. So if we optimize there, the total value will be quite great. Or we can go to the business development loans, which have a very high number of hours, but have lower numbers. So this is then something we can discuss on the business side as well. Good. Let's zoom in to our second problem area, the credit score. Now here we can do another quick check. We can see what the automation rate there already is. Now if we switch to view, we see that the internal credit check is already a bit automized, but requesting the credit score from the credit bureau is not. So this confirms our suspicion that there is optimization potential. And we will, of course, then trigger a project to see how it can actually be improved and to realize this not insignificant potential. Now, our third problem area, we'll zoom in as well. So, yeah, now we have it. We'll switch back to the time. Now, here we see that we have our automated solution, and nevertheless, it takes us 16 hours to create a contract. Now, this will also technically need to be evaluated how it can be done, but we can see that if we do it, we can, for each case that goes through this connection, we save 16 hours of waiting time on the customer side, and even internally, if there's manual steps that we will reduce, we can save on on costs, basically. Now that we have covered the time, let's go to our, now before that, we would like to see how important automation rates are for you. So we have seen now that we can actually visualize it in the Process Explorer, and we have prepared a quick poll for you to answer and see how important this is for you. Let's see, we already have some answers. Maybe let's take those 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and see what the situation is. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it seems to be actually quite important. For certain processes, this makes sense, and not at the moment we have no answers. So this is interesting. So if you want to have more detail on this, of course, you can always contact us, and we can have a look at it together. Good. Let's go to our third hypothesis, which we can actually do not in a specific analysis view, but we can do it in the Process Explorer itself. Now, in the Process Explorer, if you click on a activity, you will see where cases come from to this activity and where they go to after the activity. Now, of course, we want to know which activities lead to the process end. So we will take this one. And then we have a very neat list on the right-hand side already ordered by case frequency that shows us the predecessors to this activity. Now, executing a payment, this is, of course, when we have completed the contract. This is a good ending, let's call it that. We have customer cancellations, which is not a good ending, but nevertheless normal, unfortunately. And informing the client of rejection is also business as usual, because there is simply cases that that we do not want to take. Now, the fourth one is where it gets interesting, because if you request a credit score from the credit bureau, the process definitely shouldn't end there. At least we would need to go through to inform the client of rejection and go through the previous steps to close the application formally. Now, if you remember our first solutions, we are already looking into automating the steps, so we can then also implement some quality measures, and with the automation, this number here might already drop, or should drop, ideally. So we will take this problem, this fact that we have found, and we will give it to the project team as well to handle them. Now, the fifth one is also interesting because it's, well, we know the problem actually. So if you create an application, or if you do online shopping, for example, you put things in the cart and you're never completing the purchase. So this seems to be something similar here. Of course, it needs to be evaluated as well with SMEs or with clients even. But nevertheless, we can see here that if we were to approve our application form, which we already have talked about earlier, we might as well reduce this number and reduce the unwanted canceling of the application process. So this is already this is also something we will add to this project then. Good. Now that we have found various problems and also solutions, we would like to see how much this will benefit the company, or that it will benefit the company if we fix all of them. For this, we have built our calculator here. And of course, as we all know, no automation project will automate everything. And if we improve the customer experience, still not every customer will eventually make the contract with us. But nevertheless, if we can estimate some rates, we can then still calculate how much benefit we will have. So, for example, if we will keep like 70% of the customers that have a complete application that are where we do not need to correct it. We can see that this will add another potential of 110 million in credit volume to our books. Now we can go through this, but you can also calculate them. The preset I have here, of course, realistically, these numbers will then be evaluated with subject matter experts and business to get a good estimate. But for the example, this should be sufficient. And we can see, we can compare the numbers here. And this can be quite simply adapted by an analyst, this dashboard like this. Good. That was it for our live demo. Let me switch back to our slides. So to sum up really quick, let's see what we have found. So we have our 3 hypotheses. For our first one, we have found that we can, by simply talking to 2 of our lead vendors, we can already tackle quite a lot of the problem, and we can, by adding a check to their application forms, we can make sure that our customers always upload the right documents, and we will have less need for correcting applications. Now, in our second hypothesis, the process time, we have uncovered some automation potential in our process. We have specific steps that we would like to automate, and we have been able to calculate how much this will benefit us. Now, in our third hypothesis, the loss cases, we already have found that we have quite a lot of synergies actually with the solutions that we have already found. This is even better. We don't need as many projects and as many fixes as to get all the potential out of our case. Now, speaking of potential, we have summarized here again what each of how much we have found in each of the hypotheses. So we see we can generate quite a lot of value potentially, of course. We still need to implement the right solutions, but overall the KPIs that we have as a company, we can see how much the impact is, and we can then calculate if the solutions are worth it, which is also very important to make decisions. So after this practical demo, Alexander will now talk to you about a case that we have done in Switzerland with PostFinance.
So thank you very much, Florian. In a matter of time, I will flip through the next few slides pretty quickly. Please bear in mind there's the opportunity to raise some questions with our Q&A box in the chat function. So what happened actually at PostFinance? PostFinance had or faced those pain points, right? And they really tried to get a better understanding how their processes works. And therefore, the core team was requested, and we were able to really tackle down those challenges and to give them transparency on how their processes effectively works. And what happened, so it was like 4 core processes which were analyzed. It really helped to give some transparency on how the processes work. We really had some interesting discussions where the bank thought, okay, onboarding process goes this and that way, and we found out, yes, in theory, but from a practical perspective, it works a bit differently. It really also helped down with the process variant to break down the spaghettis of the processes and to really get a deep understanding on how the process variations look like. So in a nutshell, what we achieved, we had a better understanding. We really helped to foster the principle of a fact-based decision-taking process, and they improved the SLAs. If you're interested in further information on the benefits which PostFinance achieved, we have a little credential demo on our webpage. It's just about 2 to 3 minutes, where you can really understand how the former COO explains on the advantages the process mining really granted to the bank. Good. So having said that, what are the key takeaways? I mean, we saw what process mining is. We saw how process mining works. It's not rocket science. We also saw why it's important. And with the presented demo of Florian, we had the opportunity to really get a good understanding and to see that it really helps to foster the focus on the pain points and to find and identify the root causes. And what's really important is that there's a big trend of RPA and robotic solution, but what often gets forgotten is that if the processes are not good and you try to optimize them, you don't really get the potential what you need. And our recommendation is, I mean, what we usually do is we have a pilot or a proof of value. It takes a few weeks, so you can get familiar with the tool and you get familiar with how it works, and it really helps to convince the decision takers to apply process mining and to really take benefit of those advantages. All right, so I guess we're at the end of this presentation. I would like to trigger the Q&A session. So my colleagues Sandro, Robert, and Florian will also be here for your questions. And I see I have one question for Sandro. Sandro, is there a way to update the data for the analysis? And how, if yes, how often can this be done?
Yes, absolutely. And this is an absolute must. You have to really do continuous data loads, basically automatically, so that you have day-by-day data. We always recommend that you do that because a one-off analysis is a good starting point. But usually you really need to see how the processes are lived and how they evolve over time. So yes, this is possible, and most of our customers do it daily or at least weekly, so they have the latest information about the process and they know where they are standing and how they're progressing with optimizations.
Oh, interesting. Thank you for that. I have a second question in a similar direction. What happens if some process or some process steps in an end-to-end perspective are still manually and not automated? I mean, how can Celonis help on that topic? Sandro?
Yes, I can take on that one. Yes, of course. The basis is digital footprints, which means you need to have digital data, but we often find that we have some systems interconnected in an end-to-end process. So it might happen that in one between two systems you don't have an interface or no digital footprints, but we can basically measure the first systems, and then we can continue on the next systems. And in between, usually we can find an intermediate solution. As you can remember, we only need digital footprints, and it doesn't matter if it's a relational database, if it's a CSV file, an Excel. It has to be just something digital, and usually, if it's important enough, we can fill this gap with an intermediate solution. But usually, the better way is, of course, that we have end-to-end processes which are connected. So basically, it is possible, but it takes some additional effort.
Okay, thank you for that. I have one last question I would like to raise to Florian. Who can create and adapt an analysis like we saw before? I mean, is this rocket science, or how do you see that?
No, it's actually quite intuitive. There is training from Celonis. Of course, you will start most of the time with an external partner who will set up the whole thing for you. But once you have analysis, you can also train your business analysts or data scientists in the company, and they will be able to build their own analysis or adapt existing ones really fast.
Okay, great. So I guess we are a bit over the time, but I hope it was a very interesting session for all of you. So if you have any further questions, yes, please feel free to reach out to us. And we saw we have two additional questions. We will come directly to the people who requested those questions. So thanks a lot. Visit us on our homepage, and if there are any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye, folks.